first edition of Rockies Zingery. I'm Trevor McKinney. I'm a student at CU Boulder, and I'm a Rockies fan.
Hi, Trevor.
And to my left,
I'm Jake Shapiro. I'm a writer at ESPN SweetSpot Network for Rockies Zingers, and I'm a Rockies fan.
Hi, Jake. And to my right,
I am Marco Mamelin. I am a student also at CU Boulder and a lifetime Rockies fan.
Hi, Marco.
This podcast, I guess, call it a podcast.
That's what it is.
It's more of just three guys talking about the Rockies and recording it.
Yeah, well, I guess that'd be qualified as a podcast. Everyone has a podcast nowadays, Trevor. It's not that hard.
Damn hippies. Anyway, welcome to Rockies Zingery. Our name is kind of unique. Started out as kind of just an acronym. I'm going to pass it over to Jake because it's more of his brainchild.
Yeah, I'm a big rock and roll guy, being from the People's Republic of Boulder, Colorado. And I figured, we should do a CSNY theme. So we did Cook, Spillborghs, Neagle and Young for some of the great, some of the bad, some of the fun, and some of the sad of Rockies history. But then we figured we needed an R to distinguish from CSNY, so we added Ritz for Kevin Ritz. And then we realized we should probably add Rockies. So the way our name is spelled out is with a bunch of capital letters that spell out RCSNY, but it's called Rockies Zingery because Zingery somehow has to do with talking, but Rockies is always related to the Rockies, except when they're related to the mountains, the Rockies, which is kind of an identity crisis for the baseball Rockies and not the mountain Rockies. I know, it gets quite confusing because they couldn't name their name after the city like the Denver Bears. They had to go with the Colorado Rockies, didn't they?
It's for another day, but
yeah. But anyway, welcome to Rockies Zingery. This is episode 1, the Ozzie Smith edition. We're going to name each episode after a baseball great, and I think that it's pretty much consensus that Ozzie Smith is the greatest number one.
And not necessarily the greatest we're always going to choose, because I have a feeling,
that's up for
Ryan
debate.
Terrio might be in here or something that I grew up watching. Ozzie Smith's one of your favorites. I know your family has some Cardinal history in it.
Yep.
So, when we get to 38, probably Ubaldo.
Yeah.
Or 2, Troy Tulowitzki, even though people say Derek Jeter is the greatest number 2, as I laugh.
So for the rundown for this show, we're going to start off by talking about the recent moves that the Rockies have made before we break camp. Then we're going to talk about the dynamic around the GM position and Walt at manager and
who's wearing the pants in the relationship.
Really, honestly,
really what we're going to call it.
Yeah, that's really what we're going to be looking at. Then we're going to get into the Rosario debate. What should we do with him? Where is he going? If he is going anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to get into the pitching approach and the different prospects that we have coming up. So, and then we're going to give you a preview from each of us for
what
this
the
season
has to offer.
Yeah.
In terms of Major League Baseball and just the Colorado Rockies, not the minor league baseball. Might as well be minor league baseball.
Honestly. All right, so the recent moves that the Rockies have made right before we break camp, kind of surprising. Brendan Barnes going down, Rex Brothers going down to AAA in Albuquerque.
2 experienced guys.
Yeah, and especially one in Brandon Barnes, who, the Rockies have said they love his energy so much. So why exactly are we doing that? What is the deal with Barnes? Are we trusting him, or what's going on? And then with Rafael Noah being brought up as well, there's just a lot of questions with who we brought up and who we sent down. Especially with guys like Rafael Betancourt and John Gray and the Christian guys, Friedrich and Birdman. We just don't really know what's... with the
Christian guys. Can we just call them that the rest of the year? Like the Christian duo,
the Christian brothers.
Like, can they form a duet Christian rock band, and we'll call them the Christian duet or something? It'll be like a Christian. What's that genre of music? Christian rock or what?
Yeah, it's Christian
that's
rock.
A rock. Yeah. Sorry, last podcast I made up words. Now I'm making up genres of music
and bands.
Oh,
we're just everywhere.
We're all over the place.
Why are we not taking over the world? So what do you guys think of these call-ups and send-downs? Who do you like them? Do you trust them? What's going on?
To be honest, apart from bringing up Rafael Betancourt, I think all the send-ups and send-downs truly don't impact the team that much, because the players that were being sent up and sent down were mostly relief pitchers and or utility outfielders and stuff, such as Brandon Barnes. So unless Rafael Betancourt takes over that setup role, I don't really see it affecting us.
Rafael Betancourt's had a great spring. And take spring numbers forever which way you will. They can either mean a lot to you or mean nothing. To me, they mean nothing. But in Rafael Betancourt's case, it's a little bit different because he's recovering from a Tommy John surgery a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, where most people said, is he even going to get a Tommy John? Because it seemed like his career was done at that point at 38 years old. And now he seems like he's poised to take over a late-inning role with the Rockies and have Adam Ottavino sandwiched between two guys in their 40s pitching in the bullpen. So I like Betancourt up, and I do think that impacts the team. And I do think Brothers being down impacts the team because if we think about Sexy Rexy, the good Rex Brothers, not being here, that impacts the team. So Rex Brothers not being here in some capacity, whether it's really good Rex or really bad Rex, is going to affect the team probably positively in both ways. Because he was either going to be really good or really bad this year. That's kind of how it felt like with Rex Brothers. Brandon Barnes, though, to finish that point, he was a really good utility outfielder. He's basically a poor man's Drew Stubbs, which is funny because we have Drew Stubbs. And Brandon Barnes is a real solid player, and the Rockies love him. He brings a lot to the table. Specifically, Walt Weiss loves him. And every manager should love a guy like Brandon Barnes who puts his time and effort into stuff.
Plays hard every day.
Yeah. And the thing with Brandon Barnes is the latest part of the season last year, he was changing up his approach at the plate and his stance, and he's still working on that through spring. So it seems like he's going to go down to Albuquerque and get some work. The interesting thing here is the approaches have changed between Bill Guyvette, Dan O'Dowd, and Jeff Bridich, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it seems like we're going to start with 4 outfielders in the year, whereas we started with 6 last year. So I think these changes do affect the team, maybe not necessarily in the cost of, changing their outcome of their season by 2 or 3 wins, but it changes the mentality and the look of this team.
Right. And I think that we're still trying to define what the look for this team is. And I think a key piece of that is at least in my mind, it's who should we bring up between Barnes and Inoa. That's, in my opinion, what it is. And I think I've seen Rafael Inoa. I had season tickets to the Sky Sox last summer, and I saw him almost every day. And he's a solid player. He's a great utility infielder, and he hits the ball pretty well, knows what he's doing. But with a guy like Brandon Barnes, who the organization loves so much, apparently, why would you take him down right before the season?
I mean, I think, as Jake pointed out, maybe it is just to fine-tune his swing, make sure he's on the right track so that when he is with the team, he makes an impact. Apart from that, I honestly don't see any other reason that they would have sent him down, considering we do kind of need just some backups for the hitter position.
I will guarantee you Brandon Barnes is up in Coors Field before the end of the year.
I agree
because to start off with where I was thinking wrong at this point is Brandon Barnes not being on the roster says that Cargo is healthy. Because Cargo, they wouldn't trust having only 4 outfielders in the outfield if one of the guys wasn't healthy or one of the guys was shaky. So they think Blackman, Stubbs, Dickerson, and Cargo are healthy to the point where they don't need extra backups. So it's a huge reassurance to those guys and to us that those guys are healthy. But one of those guys will be hurt for at least 15 days during the season, and I can't think of a better outfielder to call up than Brandon Barnes in the system. Well, Kyle Parker probably, but I don't know if that's going to happen. And then later in the year, you have the prospects with September call-up. But I'm talking about, April through July, the most probable prospect to be called up if one of those guys go down. I guess just not prospect, but a guy would be Brandon Barnes. And I think Brandon Barnes could get called up otherwise, even if one of those guys doesn't get called down, because it's common for most National League teams to have 5 outfielders.
So that's going to lead us into, like Jake said earlier, who wears the pants in this organization? Is it new GM Jeff Bridich, or is it Walt Weiss? And the new GM, he's 37 years old. Walt is older than he is. So is it a power struggle?
Coached guys in high school that might have been older.
Yeah,
than Bridich.
We don't really know. So what do you guys think? Who's in charge here? What's going on?
a huge thing with Bill Guyvet was Bill Guyvet's office was in the clubhouse of the Rockies. And how many GMs have offices within the clubhouse? And the answer is zero, except for Bill Guyvet. So Walt Weiss is going to be given free reins this year to kind of choose to do what he wants to do. And you've seen this in spring training with Troy Tulowitzki batting 2 and the pitchers batting 8th. And some more shifting than they did last year, which they actually shifted the least amount of times in Major League Baseball. So Walt's getting more reins to do kind of what he wants. And I think he's influencing a lot of the moves in terms of, calling up a second backup infielder and to back up Descalso, who's backing up the infield. It's backup. Then you have Bridich, though, and I think Bridich, we can't really tell what Bridich is doing yet because Bridich hasn't even had the reins for a full year. You really need 2 off seasons to really make the identity of the year. And a lot of people have talked about this year as being kind of the year where things are either going to go one way or another. And we're going to see what we got. And I think it's going to be a lot about seeing what kind of stuff Bridich sees that he likes to see what he wants to do with this club going forward. He's going to have to form his identity for his team going forward from this year's roster or, from trades from the outside. But this is his foundation to form his identity of what he wants his team to look like right now.
I almost think that he's already starting to do that with some of these moves. And like with the Chacin move, I think that we're really seeing his influence already and what kind of club he wants to run.
Yeah, it seems like at least the perspective I get from it so far, as you guys said, there isn't a lot to take from it because the season's just started. But I would like to say I think there's no crap taking organization to where, Chacin had supposedly coming into spring training, they told him this is your spring training to get in shape and rehab fully from your injury and be prepared for the start of the regular season. And according to many people within the Rockies organization, Chacin didn't really do that. So this may, in my opinion, is their way of saying he didn't do what we needed for him to do, so we're moving on. And if anybody else feels like they can't do what we need them to do, then we don't need you either.
He sent a message.
Yeah.
He said, this is our club. This isn't your club.
Exactly.
And there's been reports in the past that Chacin has been quote-unquote lazy. And obviously they were unhappy with his rehab progress. And they cut him loose. And you've seen stuff like that with the Rex brothers being cut down. They were unhappy with him. You got an option left. Guess what? You're going to Albuquerque. They're making more brash moves. I don't necessarily know if they're better moves, but they're more quick to make these moves.
And they're more decisive too. It's very clear what we're doing with these moves. It's saying, okay, there's no gray area. It's
John Gray,
right? We're deciding you're going down, you're cut. This is happening. There's no in between or anything like that.
I mean, granted, we had almost every single position battle figured out going into camp. So, yes, it's kind of unusual that we have 27 guys on the 25-man, 2 days before, and we kind of know who everyone's going to be and where everyone's going to be, and it's all decided, and we're not ambulance chasing, we're not going after guys. But, most teams have to, a second base battle or a right field platoon battle. And we didn't have any of that going into camp, really. The only question marks going into camp were, can William play first base? And what are John Gray and Eddie Butler? And is Chacin / anyone else healthy? Is Tulo Cargo healthy? So they weren't really big questions. They were more of, can this guy do this? Let's try and find out. Yes, they're making more brash moves and more decisive moves, but I don't necessarily know that we know what they're doing or that they know what they're doing. Because you look going back to Bridich's first move with not signing Kadire, they wanted to sign Kadire, and then they were happy when he didn't sign and they got the first round pick back. So I don't know that they know what they're doing yet. I trust Bridich. I really do. I think he's a smart guy. And from the rumblings around baseball, it seems like a lot of baseball people feel like he's a smart guy. You don't get to be a GM at 37 years old without being a smart guy. And this point was brought up to me. A lot of people said, Bridich is going to be the same as O'Dowd. Bridich, worked under O'Dowd. He's going to be his clone. How many times do you hate your boss? And how many times, even if you like your boss, how many times would you do something differently than your boss? So I don't think Bridich is the clone of Dan O'Dowd. I think he learned a lot. I don't think Dan O'Dowd's an idiot. I think he did a lot of stuff. It was just misdirected.
Yeah, go listen to him on MLB Network. He definitely can talk some baseball. Hearing him pump up Kadire was funny. It was like, oh, did you know he played for you last year?
But I think that we're seeing that Bridich is very confident. I think that if anything, he's expressed his confidence in all these moves and what he's doing with the program. But now going back to probably the biggest position battle, if you even want to call it that, is at catcher. And it's not even a position battle. It's just more of a question. What are we doing with Willeen Rosario and Torito? I mean, I don't know if we're trading him. Are we... Yeah, that means baby bull in Spanish.
Oh.
I mean, the way you said
it was like a different person's name.
Yeah, having a friend whose name is Luke Torito, it confused me for a second.
Torito, yeah.
So what are we doing with Torito?
That's the big question.
What would Torito do?
Donde vas Torito?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So we got Willeen, we got Michael, and we got Nick Hundley. Yep. #Too many cooks.
Nice.
I think you keep all three. I think you platoon Willeen with Justin Morneau at first base. I'm a big defense guy, but honestly, screw it. You might as well get as many hits as possible from that first base position.
I look at it similarly to where at this point, the best thing we can do for Willeen and for the team and for Willeen's value is to just get him to be able to be on, hitting. Because if he's catching, he'll be hitting, but we can't use him as a designated hitter because we're in the National League. That's just not going to work. So for him, play first base. He can't play it defensively, but show that he can hit so that we can just ship him out to somewhere else. Because at this point, we have no use for him.
They'll say first base on his lineup card, but we all know he really won't be playing first base.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with both of you to a sense. I don't want him on the team anymore.
I do.
Yeah.
I want him on the team. Here's why I want him on the team. The dude has right-handed power. He can hit. And not many people have right-handed power in Major League Baseball anymore. I think you try and keep him on the roster for a little bit and at least let his value develop until the trade deadline when this team sells, and maybe you can get something for him. They can flip something for him. There's no point in not giving him at bats. Where else are you going to give those bats to? Ben Paulson?
Kyle Parker.
Okay, yeah, true, Kyle Parker.
Either one of them playing first behind Morneau.
But, I think you need that pinch hitter off the bench, and that's a key to being successful in the National League. And I think he's the perfect candidate for it, except for the fact that everyone still considers him a catcher, and generally catchers can't really be your pinch hitter. But how many times did Jason Giambi stay in games after he pinch hit for the Rockies? Rarely ever. So you can have Willeen Rosario be a successful pinch hitter for the Rockies, at least at the start of the season, and kind of take him out of the catcher's mindset and have Nick Hundley be your starting catcher and have Michael McHenry kind of be your 1B, because McHenry can play catcher and he can hit.
All right, so the one issue I have with Willeen being our pinch hitter for the team, when you mention a Jason Giambi or a Seth Smith, or players that in the past have been able to come through and be our pinch hitters, the one thing that all of them had is the clutch ability. And I look at Willeen, I see some aspects of a clutch hitter, but also I see him failing in a lot of areas. And when we looked up his stats, he's a completely statistically average clutch hitter. So it's not like he's going to really hurt you in that area, but I wouldn't say that he helps your team in any way when you're using him as a pinch hitter.
And now to the people who will either be throwing to Willeen or maybe not. We don't really know.
Nick Hundley.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe Tom Murphy, according to Purple Dino Podcast, by the end of the year.
Really?
Yeah, they said Tom Murphy's got a chance at making the big club by the end of the year.
Interesting. All right, well, yeah, now to the pitching prospects and the pitching outlook for the year. What's the approach this year? Who's going to be the main guy? I mean, I think that we can tell that the organization likes Kyle Kendrick. They like Jorge when he's not hurt. What do you guys think? Who's going?
I mean, when you say who's their guy, I don't think you can say any of them. Maybe a John Gray or something, but you can't. There's nobody that's like he's our guy. He's our Ubaldo. Even though I know that's not even a great reference there, but I don't know. At this point, Jorge Dolores is hurt. We got Kyle Kendrick starting on opening day. I don't know. This is about as tough as I've ever seen the Rockies pitching rotation
going into it.
Exactly, and not to say they're bad. I just don't know how to read into them and what we're going to get from them.
They have a guy, and his name is JDLR, Jorge De La Rosa. He's always been their guy. He will be their guy until his arm falls off his shoulder worse than Rafael Betancourt's did.
Which, of course, will happen because we're the Rockies.
Right. His arm will be severed at some point during the season because I said that.
And we'll still put him in.
Right. And he'll be throwing with his other arm, kind of. Who was that Red Sox pitcher that had the one hand?
Jim Abbott.
Yeah,
and the Yankees.
Jim Abbott,
he played
right?
For every team.
Right, exactly. Anyways, their guy's JDLR, and he's going to miss about a month or probably more because you never know with those pesky groin issues. But he is the number one. He's my favorite player on the Rockies. He has been for a long time. The hip hip hooray after the strikeout thing makes me laugh all the time.
God, so Rockies.
Yes, it is fantastic. The hashtag That's So Rockies, our friends over at Purple Dino Podcast created it, like we just mentioned 1 second ago. But yeah, I think this season is going to be mostly about kind of putting in John Gray and the Eddie Butlers of the world in at the right time into the big league rotation. And I know this is something we brought up pre-pod, or pre-podcast, as some people like to call it. You guys said that the organization has had trouble in the past with developing prospects. Elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, just from being a Rockies fan my whole life, I've seen the Ubaldo Jimenez, the Franklin Morales, the Aaron Cooks, the Jeff Francis come up that have all been supposed to be that next up-and-coming guy, and we've seen flashes of that from them. But my biggest issue is the way that the Rockies used them when bringing them up. I felt like they always threw them into bad situations and didn't allow for them to really acclimate themselves properly to the major leagues.
And this is where I think the approach has changed. The approach has completely done a 180, in my opinion, on how they're treating pitchers and how they're developing them. And the first step came from moving the minor league affiliate from Colorado Springs to Albuquerque, because Albuquerque, their thinking is going to favor pitchers, and they're going to be able to kind of judge how a pitcher's doing at Albuquerque to Coors Field, whereas Colorado Springs Security Service Field was a nightmare for pitchers, and they wouldn't bring guys to Security Service Field. So I really think that that's a huge step. Another thing that they've done is they have a lot of guys that can get misses. They can generate swings and misses. And you look at Rockies teams of the past, and not many pitchers in Rockies history have been able to strike out guys. Recently, the only two that come to mind are Ubaldo Jimenez and Yoeli Chacin. And you look at John Gray, Eddie Butler, Kyle Freeland, and to some extent Tyler Matzik, and maybe even Tyler Anderson down the road. And these are all guys who can strike out guys straight away. And you look at the Rockies' ground ball rates as well. And they have extremely high ground ball rates, especially at Coors Field. And you're pitching into a defense with Gold Glover Nolan Arenado, Gold Glover Troy Tulowitzki, Gold Glover DJ LeMahieu, and former MVP Justin Morneau at first base. So I think the Rockies pitching staff and the mentality under Jeff Bridich, if not had been already started under Dan O'Dowd and Bill Guyvet, has completely changed, and they're trying to find kind of a market inefficiency with the way the Rockies are developing pitchers. Obviously, the Royals have shown how important strikeouts were, basically riding strikeouts to the World Series with their pitching staff. But you look at what the Rockies are doing, and I think it's completely different than what they've done in the past. And I really, you talked about all those guys that didn't develop. John Gray, Eddie Butler, Kyle Freeland are completely different pitching prospects than those guys. They are the best pitching prospects you can find in baseball. You talk about Ubaldo, you talk about Aaron Cook. Those guys were good, but they weren't the top tier of prospect in baseball. It's just the situation right now where the Rockies have, John Gray might have more talent than anyone the Rockies have ever had in terms of a pitching staff. And that's what gives me hope that this pitching staff in the near future will be good. Is the mindset has changed about how to treat them. They're not piggybacking guys anymore. They're going to let them loose. That's another thing they're doing. And the talent is more so than they've ever had before. And this talent is going to be locked up for several years, too, where they're going to be able to develop them under their pitching coach, Steve Foster, and they're going to be able to kind of generate a relationship with whatever catcher they bring up. Maybe Tom Murphy, maybe it's going to be with Michael McHenry. Who knows who the catcher of the future is, but you know that they're going to be comfortable. And one of the cool things is Kyle Freeland, who a lot of people are starting to get very high on due to his great half season last year after he got drafted, is a Colorado kid, and he would be the fifth Coloradan to play for the Rockies. And I know I will be the first to get a Kyle Freeland jersey when he comes to Coors Field, because that'll be awesome.
Yep, and just an update, today, April 4th, Eddie Butler got the start against the Mariners. He did not fare well. 2 1/3 pitch, 6 hits, 5 earned runs, gave up a home run, only 1 strikeout. So we can probably expect him to be sent down to ABQ.
I hope so.
I think it'd be better.
I really, really hope so. And him kind of pitching his way out of the spot kind of makes me happy because he doesn't seem like he's fully healthy. He got injured a few weeks ago in camp. And I want him to get some rest time. And he has 0.57 whatever of service time. If they can hold him down to June, they're going to get that extra year, as they will with Gray if they hold him down for 15 days because of Eddie Butler came up for that 1 start last year. So I really think that this year that it's all about development and progress. So you might as well have John Gray and Eddie Butler get some significant time down in Albuquerque to advance their repertoire and the repertoire and they think and the way they think as pitchers. And it'll give Eddie Butler certainly some time to relax. And the biggest positive is that they're going to get 1 more year on the back end of their contracts.
Well, I got to say, all of that's pretty reassuring because my biggest issue with the Rockies pitchers is just I'm worried they're going to get ruined by the staff. So as long as you feel comfortable that they know what they're doing, and honestly, I can
Well, who's been the staff the entire time we've been alive? It's been Dan O'Dowd.
Right, yeah.
So
it's completely new staff.
It's completely new. I think, you don't completely trust them 100% right away because there is some turnover within. And you still have the Monforts, and Kelly McGregor is still gone. God rest his soul. But, you have a lot of new leadership, and you have a guy who was the player development guy in Jeff Bridich who drafted these guys, who knows these guys, and these guys are big fans of Jeff Bridich, and they want to play for Jeff Bridich. So that's all good news. It's all good news with Jeff Bridich. It's everything that seems to be floating around Jeff Bridich.
All right, so now we're going to get into the predictions for the year. Right off the bat, NL West. I have the Dodgers winning it pretty favorably.
I got the Dodgers.
I wanted to pick somebody else, so I picked the Dodgers.
Nice, Marco, nice. All right, who's in the World Series, guys? I got Cardinals versus Orioles in 7 games. I don't know who's going to win that, though.
I've got Dodgers beating the Marlins in the NLCS, and the Indians beating the White Sox in the ALCS. So the Dodgers will win against the Indians in the World Series this year.
I got the Dodgers and the Mariners in the World Series. I'm high on the Mariners this year.
Nice. Going off that, MVP in each league. I have in the AL, I have Robinson Cano winning the MVP.
Robbie Cano,
Robbie Cano, I love that guy. And I got Cargo winning the MVP in the NL. What about you guys?
More likely, Cargo wins an MVP or Tulo wins an MVP? I say Tulo. What do you think, Marco?
You were putting a tough question on me there, man. I mean, my heart says I'd like Cargo, but I think Tulo has a more optimistic or a more realistic chance.
Okay, my MVPs this year, NL, I got Giancarlo Stanton. And then I got his AL counterpart, Mr. Slugger, Jose Abreu.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Joey Bats, but never mind.
Oh,
yeah.
Joey Bats is...
No, when you said his counterpart from the AL, never mind.
Right, yeah, no, I understood where you were going.
But yeah, that's great. Jose Abreu, he almost won it as a rookie last year.
Right.
It was ridiculous.
Monster
fantastic.
rookie year.
Oh my god. Yeah, for me, I got kind of a homer one. I'm picking Tulo for the NL MVP and Miguel Cabrera for the AL.
Miguel.
Miggy, you know. But if Tulo stays healthy, I think it's a sure thing. But, you know, that's for another day. We'll see how it goes. I will mention that
Tulo is the best player in baseball.
Yeah, I think within the three of us, we all would agree on that.
Yeah.
I will say for all my picks that you guys will hear, I didn't pick any players on my fantasy baseball team apart from Tulowitzki in hopes of not jinxing them. So my picks are a little more bold and less realistic than they should be, I guess.
What about Cy Young, Marco?
All right, for Cy Young, in the AL, I got Ventura off of Kansas City. The guy throws 100 miles an hour.
Just signed a huge contract.
Yeah, so I probably just jinxed it in saying that. But and then in the NL, I got Zach Greinke, and yes, that's correct. I did not pick a different pitcher from the LA Dodgers.
Right, because I'm going to pick him. Kershaw is going to just dominate again, and King Felix in Seattle. Too good.
I got King Felix in Seattle because there's no way that dude's satisfied with finishing second in the Cy Young to Corey Kluber.
Yeah,
that dude might have the best pitcher year ever this year.
Yeah,
he is so good, and he loves Seattle so much. It's fantastic to see.
And they love him.
Yeah,
oh
I love that relationship. In the NL, I picked Jake Arrieta, and then I scratched it out. And then I picked Kershaw because I remembered Clayton Kershaw was in the National League. And then I scratched it out because I remembered my favorite player in all of baseball, who signed a huge free agent deal this offseason from the Kansas City Royals to San Diego Padres, Mr. James Shields, better known as Astronaut Lion. And I really wish the Rockies would have signed him because he's one of my favorite players in baseball. So I think Astronaut Lion, coupled with San Diego down there and Petco and who knows, plays center field for them. But I think he's going to have a hell of a year down there in that pitcher's park.
All right, solid picks. Who's the breakout player for the Rockies this year?
I guess this is a breakout player. I got Kyle Kendrick because I'm not expecting Kyle Kendrick to do much right now, but I can see him breaking out. But I also have, as a backup, Rafael Yanoa because I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I think there might be some holes to fill in some spots, and we'll get to that in a second.
And most people may not say this is a breakout player, but I believe Cargo will break out of his minor, slump.
He had a negative WAR last year.
Exactly.
So technically,
I think we will see Cargo return to the Cargo of 2012 and 2009.
If he wins the MVP, like Trevor says, he would potentially win the comeback player of the year award.
He would sweep everything.
Right.
He would basically Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Right.
Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, going off what Marco said, I have Cargo kind of winning the breakout player. I guess if I have to pick realistically, it'll be Paulson. I think that he'll get some time at first. I think that he'll have a pretty good year. Now for the team MVP, like I said, I just have Cargo. I think he's going to have a good year.
My favorite player in the world, Troy Tulowitzki. I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. If he's healthy, is always the question.
So wait, your favorite player is Astronaut Lion / Troy Tulowitzki.
My favorite pitcher,
Ernie Banks /
My favorite pitcher is Astronaut Lion. For an opposing team, my favorite player of all time probably is Troy Tulowitzki, just because when I watched him play, I grew a mullet my sophomore year of high school in honor of Troy Tulowitzki. So, yeah, I got Tulo as my Rockies MVP.
Marco?
And I do too, for somewhat different reasons. He's not my favorite player, but I do think if he stays healthy, me and Jake and Trevor all agree on this, that he is the best player in all of baseball when healthy. So, if he's healthy, there's no other person you can put down for your MVP other than Tulo.
Yep.
Or a Cargo, as you said, because Cargo is really good.
Nolan hits like 80 home runs.
Oh,
I would not be opposed to that. Yeah.
All right, bold predictions like Nolan hitting 80. But Marco, what about you?
All right, this is somewhat bold, even though he actually didn't have a bad year last year. But I'm going to say that LaTroy Hawkins does not blow a save all year.
A pretty bold prediction. I like it.
But how many saves does he get? How many save opportunities
what are we
does
talking
he get?
here?
Plus or minus 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so for my bold prediction, I say that Cargo flirts with 400 all year, and that's why he wins the MVP and why we have such a good year, as you'll see in a second. But, Jake?
My bold prediction, and this is way bolder than your guys', I think DJ LeMahieu is not the starting second baseman by the end of the year. I think he's gone, or I think he might not even be on the roster by the end of the year.
Wow. Just won a gold glove, and Now he's gone.
I think he's not very good.
Interesting. All right.
It's a lot to think about.
If you think about the lineup, he's the only soft spot in the lineup.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a pitcher.
Well,
That's, I mean, in the lineup. But center field is a little bit weaker, and second base. Those are your two weak spots, and DJ LeMahieu is not someone I've ever really liked.
all right. So now the ultimate prediction part: wins, losses. What do you guys see? I have us going 82-80 this year, missing the playoffs though, but still barely above 500. Thank you, Cargo.
So Cargo has an MVP year, and he flirts with 400, and the best the Rockies do is get to 82
82-80.
wins.
Yeah.
One was bold, the other's realistic, right? Or was
Well,
it?
no,
I
that
feel
was
like they're both pretty.
that was both bold and
Oh,
realistic.
Okay,
No.
okay.
I mean, sure.
I think if Cargo bats 400, we will be above 500. I don't see how he could do that and
Yeah.
we'd not be above 500.
I would say so.
But-
Yeah.
Because everyone gets hurt
Yeah, exactly.
besides Cargo. What if Cargo goes 4 for 10, and then he's like out
And
for
then
the
he's
rest of the
gone.
year?
Let's not talk about
Then-
that because Cargo's on my.
But that's a
fantasy
realistic
baseball.
possibility right there.
Is the octopus
Do
back?
the octopus is back? Do I give you credit for predicting he goes 400 if he goes 4 for 10?
Hell yeah, you'd give me credit.
All right.
It's right. All right, Marco, what's your prediction?
Well, all right. So now I don't know if we're doing realistic and bold ones, but my realistic one is we win 78 games. I think we're a little below 500. But boldly, I think we win 90. So
Aw, you outdid me.
sorry.
Um,
I mean, it was bold. So what do you, if Tulo and Cargo
Be
have MVP
bolder.
seasons and
okay, I
bolder-
think we're going to win 162 games.
Ooh,
Oh, that's pretty
I
good.
think you can't beat that.
You're taking the Boulder mindset.
Be bolder.
Be
that's
bolder.
that's the CU Boulder slogan
Motto.
around
Yeah.
campus. But no, realistically, I think not realistically because we're not going to win 88 games. But as Jonah Carey said in his Rockies team preview, the Rockies could ride the 99th percentile of luck to a postseason bid, and I think that's that 88 number. Otherwise, I think it's either 88 or 68. And I think the 68 will be, we won't be headed towards 68, but we're gonna sell at the deadline and kind of tail off. I think that'll be kind of if we end up at 68. So, my big prediction.
All right, nice job, guys. That's the first episode of Rockies Zingery. Episode 1, the Ozzy Myth Edition. I almost said Ozzy Guillen.
I know you did. The Venezuelan jockey,
Yeah,
RCSNY baby,
What
we'd
number
like to
was
get
he
him
in?
on here someday.
Yeah,
Ozzy Guillen.
Yeah.
We can maybe test the waters
that's
on
the
that.
goal. I think that's the goal.
That's the
He
goal
would
of
be
our
the most
podcast.
awesome person to interview, maybe apart from Bill Walton.
I mean,
Really?
I've already done that with Bill Wald. So
So, new goal.
new goal, Ozzy
Ozzy
Guillen is the was it the masthead?
Sure.
I don't know. I'm
I
making
don't
up words
know.
again.
Like,
This is why I'm a writer, because I can Google things before I send them
Yeah.
to my editor. Yeah, so our RCSNY, that was the first edition. We hope you liked it. We hope you listen again. Follow us on Twitter, kind of, at Rockies Zingers.
yeah, we're kind of on there.
We'll be kind of on there.
Like collective.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, just like us, just like the Rockies, and just like your life. All work in progress.
Oh,
No, I'm a poet.
Did you know it?
something like that.
Yeah.
You ruined it. We're going to have to start over the podcast just because of that.
All right, well, that was the first episode of Rockies Zingery. See you guys soon.
Bye.
You say